Hi there. This is John Drew here from Elevated Planet.
Angela Gabrielle, we'd like to welcome you today to our live stream program. Today we have some videos we'll be going over, and John is going to tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, today we're going to have quite an impactful show, I would say. I'll tell you a little bit more about where the background of this came from part way through. But we're going to start off with a video. We're going to do something slightly different here. We're going to go through this first time around, and then we are going to play it again. And the reason we're going to do that, and it's only 7 minutes something seconds. So the bottom line is we're going to play it through, but it's very impactful. And then we are going to go back through it again, because then we break it down into sections and actually ask the question, so what does this mean for us, right? Because I think it certainly warrants dwelling on the points as they get made. So this, the first video we've got is from the Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. And it's only a relatively short section. It's chapters 130 and 131 of this compilation book that he's brought out. So if you bear with me a second, all will be revealed very shortly. Bear with me.
Throughout history, you have had remarkable teachers, each presenting extraordinary opportunities to remember who you really are. These teachers have shown you the highest and the lowest of the human potential. They have presented vivid, breathtaking examples of what it can mean to be human, of where one can go with the experience, of where the lot of you can and will go given your consciousness. The thing to remember, consciousness is everything and creates your experience. Group consciousness is powerful and produces outcomes of unspeakable beauty or ugliness. The choice is always yours. If you are not satisfied with the consciousness of your group, seek to change it. The best way to change the consciousness of others is by your example. If your example is not enough, form your own group. You be the source of the consciousness you wish others to experience. They will when you do. It begins with you. Everything, all things. You want the world to change? Change things in your own world. Hitler gave you a golden opportunity to do that. The Hitler experience, like the Christ experience, is profound in its implications and the truths it revealed to you about you. Yet those larger awarenesses live, in the case of Hitler or Buddha, Genghis Khan or Hare Krishna, Attila the Hun or Jesus the Christ, only so long as your memories of them live. That is why Jews build monuments to the Holocaust and ask you never to forget it, for there is a little bit of Hitler in all of you, and it is only a matter of degree. Wiping out a people is wiping out a people, whether at Auschwitz or Wounded Knee.
So, Hitler was sent to us to provide us a lesson about the horrors man can commit, the levels to which man can sink.
Hitler was not sent to you. Hitler was created by you. He arose out of your collective consciousness and could not have existed without it. That is the lesson. The consciousness of separation, segregation, superiority, of we versus they, of us and them, is what creates the Hitler experience. The consciousness of divine brotherhood, of unity, of oneness, of ours rather than yours, mine, is what creates the Christ experience. When the pain is ours, not just yours, when the joy is ours, not just mine, when the whole life experience is ours, then it is at last truly that, a whole life experience.
Why did Hitler go to heaven?
Because Hitler did nothing wrong. Hitler simply did what he did. I remind you again that for many years millions thought he was right. How then could he help but think so? If you float out a crazy idea and 10 million people agree with you, you might not think you're so crazy. The world decided finally that Hitler was wrong. That is to say, the world's people made a new assessment of who they are and who they chose to be in relationship to the Hitler experience. He held up a yardstick. He set a parameter, a border against which we could measure and limit our ideas about ourselves. Christ did the same thing at the other end of the spectrum. There have been other Christs and other Hitlers, and there will be again. Be ever vigilant then, for people of both high and low consciousness walk among you, even as you walk among others. Which consciousness do you take with you?
I still don't understand how Hitler could have gone to heaven. How could he have been rewarded for what he did?
First, understand that death is not an end, but a beginning. Not a horror, but a joy. It's not a closing down, but an opening up. The happiest moment of your life will be the moment it ends. That's because it doesn't end, but only goes on in ways so magnificent, so full of peace and wisdom and joy as to make it difficult to describe and impossible for you to comprehend. It was the Buddha who said, "Life is suffering." The Buddha was right.
But even if I accept that, Hitler didn't know he was actually doing good. He thought he was doing bad.
No, he didn't think he was doing something bad. He actually thought he was helping his people. And that's what you don't understand. No one does anything that is wrong, given their model of the world. If you think Hitler acted insanely and all the while knew that he was insane, then you understand nothing of the complexity of human experience. Hitler thought he was doing good for his people, and his people thought so too. That was the insanity of it. The largest part of the nation agreed with him. You have declared that Hitler was wrong. Good. By this measure, you have come to define yourself. Know more about yourself. Good. But don't condemn Hitler for showing you that. Someone had to. You cannot know cold unless there is hot, up unless there is down, left unless there is right. Don't condemn the one and bless the other. To do so is to fail to understand. For centuries, people have been condemning Adam and Eve. They are said to have committed original sin. I tell you this, it was the original blessing. For without this event, the partaking of the knowledge of good and evil, you would not even know the two possibilities existed. Indeed, before the so-called fall of Adam, these two possibilities did not exist. There was no evil. Everyone and everything existed in a state of constant perfection. It was literally paradise. Yet you didn't know it was paradise, could not experience it as perfection, because you knew nothing else. Shall you then condemn Adam and Eve, or thank them? And what say you shall I do with Hitler? I tell you this, God's love and God's compassion, God's wisdom and God's forgiveness, God's intention and God's purpose are large enough to include the most heinous crime and the most heinous criminal. You may not agree with this, but it doesn't matter. You have just learned what you came here to discover.
Okay. So we're not going to dwell too much on that at this stage because we are going to break it down. So we're going to go straight back into it and take it one section at a time. I do acknowledge the fact that many people will not see this as, a God thing, because it may not fit in with their version of how they see God. But for my part, I would totally recommend the book and keep an open mind. You know, as Frank Zappa said, just to get the quote right, a mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open. So be mindful, always open to new ideas if you can. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is going to take this back to the beginning. We're going to just play the first minute and a half or so, and then Jolie and I will come in with a couple of comments relating to that, because this is powerful stuff. Bear with me. Here we go.
Throughout history, you have had remarkable teachers, each presenting extraordinary opportunities to remember who you really are. These teachers have shown you the highest and the lowest of the human potential. They have presented vivid, breathtaking examples of what it can mean to be human, of where one can go with the experience, of where the lot of you can and will go given your consciousness. The thing to remember, consciousness is everything and creates your experience. Group consciousness is powerful and produces outcomes of unspeakable beauty or ugliness. The choice is always yours. If you are not satisfied with the consciousness of your group, seek to change it. The best way to change the consciousness of others is by your example. If your example is not enough, form your own group. You be the source of the consciousness you wish others to experience. They will when you do. It begins with you. Everything, all things. You want the world to change? Change things in your own world. Hitler gave you...
Right. Here's our first pause point, which I think this is a really powerful first section. Every section here is powerful. Teachers are the highest and the lowest of human potential. Consciousness is everything and creates our experience. Group consciousness is powerful and creates outcomes of an unspeakable beauty or ugliness. The choice is yours. Those words, to me, they really resonated. And the reason we're actually going into this right now, this last week, I received a video that was sent to me by one of our community, as it happens. And it was one with current world events. And it was horrifying, I'll be honest. It really prompted something in me that said, okay, are we happy with the group consciousness that forms what is going on the planet right now? No. So what do you do about it? Okay, so then it starts you on this wheel of saying, okay, right. The first thing you do feel is you feel small, right? You feel that, well, how can I impact something going on in a world of 8 billion people? And it's that thought process that keeps you small. So you start to look at this and you listen to this. Group consciousness is powerful and creates outcomes of unspeakable beauty or ugliness. At the moment, we're seeing some ugliness out there. It's not all wall-to-wall ugliness. There is still beauty out there in the world as well. But nevertheless, that is what prompted me to I shared it with Jolie. We looked at it and we decided this was the path to go on, because we want to create something that is destined to upshift the frequency, not just for us, but for many, many others as well. So this is us using the power, the words there, the group consciousness is powerful. Okay, the choice is ours. We're on that journey. What do you think, Jolie?
Absolutely. And especially when she says, like, if you don't like what you're seeing or the people that you're around, then create a new group and a community. And that's exactly what John and I have done and are doing. And so it's right in alignment with what is unfolding now for this time. And although there may be this horrific energy that's out in the universe, we play a part in it to some degree. So let's, I guess, do what they say, like turn the Titanic and move the energy on the dial, differently pivot this to a positive energy so that things going forward get extinguished at a faster rate. And that, as she will say, as she moves on reading, Neale Donald Walsch's communications, she says what you are creating is what is going to unfold. So the mind is really powerful.
Truly, truly powerful. Right, here we go. The next little section.
A golden opportunity to do that. The Hitler experience, like the Christ experience, is profound in its implications and the truths it revealed to you about you. Yet those larger awarenesses live, in the case of Hitler or Buddha, Genghis Khan or Hare Krishna, Attila the Hun or Jesus the Christ, only so long as your memories of them live. That is why Jews build monuments to the Holocaust and ask you never to forget it, for there is a little bit of Hitler in all of you, and it is only a matter of degree. Wiping out a people is wiping out a people, whether at Auschwitz or Wounded Knee.
So, Hitler was sent to us to provide us a lesson about the horrors man can commit, the levels to which man can sink.
Hitler was not sent to you. Hitler was created by you. He arose out of your collective consciousness and could not have existed without it. That is the lesson. The consciousness of separation, segregation, superiority, of we versus they, of us and them, is what creates the Hitler experience. The consciousness of divine brotherhood, of unity, of oneness, of ours rather than yours, mine, is what creates the Christ experience. When the pain is ours, not just yours, when the joy is ours, not just mine, when the whole life experience is ours, then it is at last truly that, a whole life experience.
Right. This is the next break point. So again, this is an interesting way of looking at it because, we always think of like a Jesus the Christ or the Buddha or any of the other teachers who come along teaching wisdom and knowledge and joy and love, but equally to sort of be talking about the teachers at both ends of the spectrum, as the Hitler, Genghis Khan, and Attila the Hun, and and everything is created as Jolie, as you were saying before, it's all being created by us. Whatever's going on in the world is a result of the group consciousness that surrounds the planet right now. Right? What do you think?
Absolutely. But the hope always, or just the knowingness of, if we can create that, we can create something else. Because let's just kind of look at this at its origin. We come into this world and we are put in schools, a majority of us. Now, there are also different modes of education, but we are put in this situation where we're very competitive. What kind of grade did you get? What kind of grade did you get? On the test. And then we move on from there to create this sense of jealousy and envy and I'm not good enough. And then we move on into this energy where we get tested. And now we're separated from our partners. But then we hear this rhetoric that it takes a village and we need to collaborate and we need to support. So you see the dissonance that's being created just on a base level that requires that you begin to just be aware of it and forgive yourself. And then move into the energy of, hey, I need help. Can you help me? Can we come together? Can I help you? Right? And that right there is enough to move the needle on the dial.
Yes. Great. Okay, here we go. Next section.
Why did Hitler go to heaven?
Because Hitler did nothing wrong. Hitler simply did what he did. I remind you again that for many years, millions thought he was right. How then could he help but think so? If you float out a crazy idea and 10 million people agree with you, you might not think you're so crazy. The world decided finally that Hitler was wrong. That is to say, the world's people made a new assessment of who they are and who they chose to be in relationship to the Hitler experience. He held up a yardstick. He set a parameter, a border against which we could measure and limit our ideas about ourselves. Christ did the same thing at the other end of the spectrum. There have been other Christs and other Hitlers, and there will be again. Be ever vigilant then, for people of both high and low consciousness walk among you, even as you walk among others. Which consciousness do you take with you?
Right. I mean, that is a fascinating one. Hitler goes to heaven, and I know this is going to trigger people. But the bottom line is that when you read the books, certainly these Conversations with God and many, many others, different authors, it's explaining that hell doesn't actually exist. It's just something created through religion to help with a degree of control. And anyway, that's a whole different story. But which consciousness do we take with us, right? That is the question that is being asked here. You know, do we accept what is going on? If not, what do we do about it? How do we push forward with this? And how do we raise the consciousness? How do we get out away from the ugliness and heading towards the beauty, and to live life in that kind of way? Because that's something that certainly the video that I saw this last week kind of underlined the fact that, as God said, if we take this as God, there are people of higher and lower consciousness amongst you. Be forever vigilant, not vigilant, but be forever vigilant. And that is the fact. You can see that out in the world right now. But the bottom line is we don't have to accept it. And going back to that original point, we actually have significantly more power than we realize to change things. Group consciousness is enormously powerful, and I know that. I've seen the evidence of it from so many scientific-based studies as much as anything. So, yeah. Jolie, what do you think?
Absolutely. That's a very hard pill to swallow, is Hitler in heaven and that sort of energy. But once again, at its most basis level, based on, what we've learned in the logic and reason, if everything is going back to its original state or to the divine source, then that applies to all energies, right? So sometimes what path people are choosing with which to communicate with the Creator are due to the free will that we have been given. And so let's use our free will to elevate the planet and do good energy so that we can hang out and be around for, the rest of the planet can exist.
Yeah. And the thing is that high frequency energy is a lot more powerful than low frequency energy. So I think that is where things will really change. And also the fact that we're heading towards the age of Aquarius, which is supporting the kind of work where we head toward in that direction. And those who have ill intent towards humanity, there is an accelerated karma going on right now that means it will undermine those people that have ill intent towards humanity in general will have a hard time of it. So I kind of know those energies are out there. Again, many people may regard it as deluded nonsense, and that's fine. But it's interesting times. But let's carry on to the next section.
I still don't understand how Hitler could have gone to heaven. How could he have been rewarded for what he did?
First, understand that death is not an end, but a beginning. Not a horror, but a joy. It's not a closing down, but an opening up. The happiest moment of your life will be the moment it ends. That's because it doesn't end, but only goes on in ways so magnificent, so full of peace and wisdom and joy as to make it difficult to describe and impossible for you to comprehend. It was the Buddha who said, "Life is suffering." The Buddha was right.
But even if I accept...
Right. So a tiny little section there. But again, worth dwelling on, because death and the fear of death is something that is obviously very prevalent in this world. And not universally so, because I do know, and Jola, you were talking about this as well, is that there are certain communities and, tribes, even indigenous tribes, that celebrate death in a way because they know that death is not an end. And we know that when you transition over, it is like a magnificent experience. Now, we say that. I mean, there's loads of evidence out there, but you have to decide for yourself whether you accept it. But for instance, we had Gary Wimmer on the show with us last year, and his book is here, A Second in Eternity. And he describes that moment of expansion when he was leaving his body and how incredible it was. And when you go through those near-death experience videos, you kind of realize there's a common theme here. It's the expansiveness. It's the understanding of everything in an instant. And, it is incredible. And to the point where I have seen enough evidence that I can say, hand on heart, for my truth, I have no fear of death. No fear of death. And it's not that I don't want to die. I want to see this lifetime out. I think I've got a lot of work to do here for a while yet. So, I honor the life that I've got. I am blessed to be here on this planet right now, having the opportunity to be working with Jolie on Elevated Planet. And I just love this. But my fear of death, zero, right? Because I know it doesn't end here. I know it goes on. So what is explained here, I think, is very important. We had our series, which was called Dead Happy, which was making this very point, is that it is about a transitional experience where you transition, your energy never dies. It just transitions from a physical form to a non-physical form. Therefore, it's always there. Our relatives who passed over are still amongst us. We just can't see them. We can't experience them in the way that we do in the physical world. So, and that's not to say that, we take death lightly, because we don't. Because the bottom line is that if we have relatives, friends, anybody we care about who passes over, we're going to grieve, because the price of love is grief, right? And that's the way it should be. And that is totally honored. So it's not to take death lightly. And that video that I saw, it showed images that showed people going through horrific circumstances and dying. And it was just like, it was awful. But that's part of the human experience, is to experience that, that anger and the fear, which is a low vibrational energy. But, those emotions exist for a reason, because we're human. And there is nothing wrong with falling into anger. There's nothing wrong with being fearful, as long as you don't find yourself living your life in anger and don't find yourself living your life in fear, because that's when you are going into those lower frequency energies on a general basis. But the fact is, they're totally acceptable energies that should flow through you, because we are human. We're here for the human experience. What do you think, Jolie?
Absolutely agree with you 100. And she sort of begins to kind of talk about that, in this next clip, just about being able to discern, and have that energy, to pivot. So let's take a look at what she has to say here.
Right. Here we go.
That Hitler didn't know he was actually doing good. He thought he was doing bad.
No, he didn't think he was doing something bad. He actually thought he was helping his people. And that's what you don't understand. No one does anything that is wrong, given their model of the world. If you think Hitler acted insanely and all the while knew that he was insane, then you understand nothing of the complexity of human experience. Hitler thought he was doing good for his people, and his people thought so too. That was the insanity of it. The largest part of the nation agreed with him. You have declared that Hitler was wrong. Good. By this measure, you have come to define yourself. Know more about yourself. Good. But don't condemn Hitler for showing you that. Someone had to. You cannot know.
Right. So again, last little section there. Again, this is, I mean, I suppose on some levels it's controversial to talk about Hitler in this way, but this is kind of the book. And this is demonstrating to you, but don't condemn Hitler for showing you that because somebody had to. And one of the point there about nobody does anything wrong, given their effective frame of reference in the world. People, if you believe that to murder somebody is okay, then you're murdering somebody, but you don't see it as bad. Now, the others around you will disagree with you, but nevertheless, your frame of reference for the world says, actually, no, this is acceptable. So, you know, it was an eye-opener for me because it made me realize that all those people out there who and we all make mistakes from time to time, we all do things wrong. It's how we grow, right? But nevertheless, it's not the fact that you're doing it wrong because you're trying to do it wrong, do the wrong thing. But at the same time, given your frame of reference for the world, then what you're doing is acceptable. Jolie.
Absolutely. And that's what I like to, lay on the table a lot is forgiveness and the skill set to be able to do that. Because, I believe one of the reasons, there probably are many, but one of the reasons collective consciousness was able to create something like Hitler was due to the lack of forgiveness, right? Because when your heart chakra is open, as Gary Wimmer spoke about, the expansion, right? There's no room for that type of behavior, because once you're slighted or whatever, you know that the abundance of the universe is there for you, and that, hey, I need to find my people, which is what she really spoke about in depth, and because it's very simple, if you're not being treated with respect or in a way that your heart opens or you feel comfortable and safe, maybe it's not you. Maybe it's about you finding the right energy, environment, and people to be around. So that's a part of forgiveness, is understanding that sometimes it's not you. We have a tendency, because of what I've spoken about, being tested and being siloed off from your peers oftentimes, although there may be study groups and homeroom, but you're siloed off and compared and contrasted. But we have to rise above that and sort of look not down upon it as condescending, but from a perch of, okay, this is my earth experience, but at the end of the day, I'm interconnected. So the best thing for me to do is to love others, so that that love comes back to me, to help others so that it comes back to me. That is really how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful. And to that point, the one thing that we'll cover off, not this week, but next, I think we'll be moving to this. And we've mentioned this before in the past, the gift of the blessing, which is a prayer, which helps you overcome trauma. When you see things that really traumatize you, and you see events perpetrated in the world which obviously are unacceptable from the normal point of view, how can you go into forgiveness? Well, that's the challenge. But here, there's a 3-step process. And when you see this, you understand how it can be released, how you can turn a negative into a positive, because you are extending that love out across entirety, right? We're not just reserving it for those who have been the victims. But more on that next week. But yeah, thank you, Jolie. Yeah. So again, last little section now coming up.
Someone had to. You cannot know cold unless there is hot, up unless there is down, left unless there is right. Don't condemn the one and bless the other. To do so is to fail to understand. For centuries, people have been condemning Adam and Eve. They are said to have committed original sin. I tell you this, it was the original blessing. For without this event, the partaking of the knowledge of good and evil, you would not even know the two possibilities existed. Indeed, before the so-called fall of Adam, these two possibilities did not exist. There was no evil. Everyone and everything existed in a state of constant perfection. It was literally paradise. Yet you didn't know it was paradise, could not experience it as perfection, because you knew nothing else. Shall you then condemn Adam and Eve, or thank them? And what say you shall I do with Hitler? I tell you this, God's love and God's compassion, God's wisdom and God's forgiveness, God's intention and God's purpose are large enough to include the most heinous crime and the most heinous criminal. You may not agree with this, but it doesn't matter. You have just learned what you came here to discover.
Right. So that's the final little section. And I remember actually, in fact, let me just stop share here. It can come back to us. Right. So I remember a few months ago, I was in the pub with a group of friends, and Kevin, who's a friend of mine, and he was struggling with this idea of you know, the near-death experiences and all, and previous lives and past lives. And obviously this idea of you go, you know, once you, as the Buddha said, life is suffering, you know, in the physical is suffering. And Buddha was right, according to God. Now, the way you look at this is to say, if when you're on the other side, you go back to paradise, why would we come here in the first place? Why would we want to experience life here in the physical if the other side of this is paradise? And he says, why would you ever choose to come here? And it's a really good question. It's a really good question, right? Because there you are living in paradise. But here, this is where God explains it really well, which is all about the fact that, you know, contrast. You're here for contrast. If you lived in a permanent paradise, you wouldn't know you were in paradise because you've got nothing to measure it against. And that's why when you come here, you have this duality thing going on, right? And you've got the contrast of hot and cold and black and white and up and down and you know, all those emotions that take you all the way from the really truly negative emotions with violence and anger and all that kind of thing, all the way up to unconditional love. You're here for the contrast. That is a vast contrast. And if you look at that emotional spiral that we've got, you know, you see the upper levels of that. And that's the life that most people would say, yeah, I want to live there. Now you ask yourself the question, well, where do I live my life? And you can kind of pinpoint it and realize where you go up and down on this. And you are supposed to go up and down. You know, it's not a one-way street. But nevertheless, the aim is if you can live your life in joy, in laugh, you know, with laughter, happiness, you know, bliss, and compassion, kindness, all those kind of things. Who wouldn't choose that? Right? So that, I think this is a really interesting point, the contrast thing. So that's why you would leave perfection in the first place. What do you think, Jolie?
Absolutely. And there's also levels and patterns to take into consideration. You know, when you think about passing on from one realm to the next, and we use death of the physical body and we look at it, right, as suffering. But once you kind of align with the fact that there's these levels to it, right? We spoke about school and testing and how, you know, you test to get to that next level. But what is it that you do? You take the lesson. So you ask the question, like, why do we keep coming back here from paradise? And it's the same thing. It's the lesson. So if we look at it in terms of that person or that soul who was in that physical body, learned all that there was to learn or they needed to learn in that iteration, and they're moving on to that next level or that next stage. And it's the same thing that we're trying to do, which is help with those emotions. You spoke about that ladder of anger, frustration, all the way up to love and joy. And it's like, once we learn how to feed the wolf that takes us to the joy, that what have we done? We've had these lessons in anger. We learn about an emotional intelligence that brings us to that next level. So if you look at it, there's a pattern, even schooling, you know, life moving from struggle and suffering into peace and prosperity, and then moving from this level of the physical into a realm where now you're just light or soul energy, life force. It's all the same. It all builds. The patterns are there. So then now, isn't it easier to make the choice now that kind of your vision has been expanded? So instead of choosing the reverberations of the negativity, let's choose those reverberations of the light, because we see they not only take place at the school level, right? But they also take place here in the spirit.
Mm. Yes, love it. I love it. So basically, you know, the whole point behind this now is that together we can become the source of the consciousness that we and then others wish to experience, right? This is the nos populi thing that is really starting to now build. And understand that we have great power. So it is time to exercise our power into the perfection of the world we want to have surrounding us. And we do have that power, right? I think that's the important thing to understand. We have the power. And should we go to the Gregg video, do you think, now, Jolie?
Yes. And really, I think Gregg is going to also unpack some of the complexities she spoke about, you know? All of this is so wonderful. So yes, absolutely go. Let's go.
Yeah. So this is Gregg Braden, who we featured before, just a few weeks ago, as it happens. And we will be going to the retreat there in Arizona, given a few 2 or 3 months or whatever it is. So yeah, so bear with me a second. I'm going to find that and I'm going to play this to you, because this kind of helps to underline about how we do have that power. Because, you know, we feel small. You know, we the people still feel small versus these other forces. We don't need to. There's reasons behind that. So bear with me a second. I am going to do a little share screen here and get it on the right video. Here we go.
So what I'd like to do is share an example. This is a story, it's a true story that happened to me when I left the corporations in the early 1990s, and I moved to a piece of land in the high desert of northern New Mexico. And those of you that live in that part of the world, you may remember the 1990s was one of the worst droughts in recorded history. It was terrible. Cattle were dying, crops were dying, people were selling their farms because they could no longer support themselves on the land. And it was during this time that a native friend of mine called me one morning. David called me one morning and he asked me, he said, "Gregg, would you like to meet me and accompany me to a place that is so old, no one even knows who built this place. It was built by the hands of our ancestors. It is a wheel. It is a circle of stone where we offer our prayers, because in this place, the skin between the worlds is very thin." I love that terminology. So he said, "Would you like to join me to offer a prayer of rain?" And I didn't have to think twice. I said, "You bet." And I met David and we hiked into this place. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. As an Anglo, as a Westerner, I expected to see some chanting, some kind of ceremony, maybe some dancing. And what I saw was David. He sat in the ground, he took off his old work boots, he unlaced them and put them outside the circle. He stepped into the circle with his naked feet on the ground. He closed his eyes. He honored all of his ancestors. He honored the directions, all 6 of them. And then he closed his eyes with his hands in a prayer mudra over his heart, just for a few seconds. This is outside of the town of Taos, New Mexico. It's the nearest city of any size. And he looked at me. He opened his eyes and he looked and he said, "I'm hungry. You want to get a bite to eat?" And he was inside the circle. And I said, "Well, yes." I said, "But I thought you were going to pray for rain." And he looked at me, and what he said has stayed with me so powerfully for so long, and it's helped so many people when they think about how this prayer works. He looked at me and said, "No." He said, "If I prayed for rain, rain could never happen." He said, "Because the moment I pray for rain, I have just told the universe that rain does not exist here. The moment I pray for it to happen, I'm acknowledging that it's not here now." And I said, "Well, if you didn't pray for rain just now," I said, "when you close your eyes, what did you just do?" And he said, "When I closed my eyes," he said, "I felt the feeling of what it feels like when it rains in my Pueblo village." He said, "I felt the feeling of what it feels like to stand with my naked feet in the mud, and the mud is there because there's been so much rain." He said, "I smelled the smells of what the rain smells like when it rolls off the earthen walls from our Pueblo, and I felt what it would feel like to walk through the corn that's this high against my naked chest, and it's this high because there's been so much rain to grow the corn, and then I give thanks of gratitude and appreciation for the rain that has already happened. He's brought together so many of the concepts. He's acknowledging that there's a field out there, number one, that he's communicating with that field. He's acknowledging that the feeling is the language that the field recognizes. It's not so much about the words. The words can be spoken. However, if the words are spoken, the goal is to create the feeling, all right? And he's acknowledging that he has the potential as a man, a human, in the presence of this field, to reach inside of the field into the realm of all things that are possible and isolate the possibility of his choice and collapse that potential into something real in our world. And he's doing it through a very sophisticated internal technology that we call the lost mode of prayer. It is a feeling-based prayer. The key, feeling as if the prayer is already answered. David and I went into Taos, New Mexico. We had lunch about an hour south of where this prayer was offered. By the time I got back onto my land, something began to happen that we hadn't seen in a long time. Big black clouds came in over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. It started to rain, and it rained. And it rained and rained and rained. It rained all that night. It rained the next morning. It rained the next afternoon. It rained and rained. It rained so much the ground was so dry it couldn't absorb the rain, and everything began to flood. Fields were flooded, cattle were stranded, roads were washed out. And I called my friend on the phone. I'm just going to share this with you. I called my friend on the phone and I said, David, man, this is a mess. I said, what is happening? And he was quiet just for a moment. And he said, Greg, that's the part of the prayer our ancestors could never figure out. He said they could tell it to rain, but they couldn't tell it how much to rain. So I cannot prove to you scientifically that David's prayer had anything to do with the rain that came in that afternoon. I cannot prove that to you as a scientist. As a scientist, what I have to say is there's a high correlation between the rain that appeared that hadn't been seen in a long time and what David had just done hours earlier. When we talk about these things, some of these are anecdotal stories, but they're illustrating from an indigenous perspective a very powerful concept. Look at what David did. He incorporated all of his senses. He didn't ask for something to happen. He felt it had already happened. He smelled what it smells like when it happens. He heard the sounds of the rain. I didn't even tell you about that part, but he heard the sounds of the rain. And he felt as if that rain is already there. I'm going to invite you to think about this as we go into this modality of prayer that I'm going to share with you. So
Right. So we stop it at that point. The reason being that this is about 13 minutes long. We don't have 13 minutes. So we just took that initial snippet from that because it actually takes us to where we want to go with this. So one of the things that he actually goes on to explain in the remaining 7 minutes or so of the video, he talks about the fact that when we think about prayer, generally, we're taught as kids that you pray for what you want, you're there and it's like, God bless mom and dad and this, that, and the other. But now, when you ask for things through prayer, you are told, as it says in the King James Version of the Bible, ask and you shall receive. Right? Now, most people find that they don't always get what they pray for, right? In fact, quite rarely did they get what they prayed for. So after a while, you get a little bit frustrated about it, and then you kind of give up on the prayer idea or whatever. But what Gregg goes on to explain is that that this was an edited version of the Bible, the King James Bible, which is created around 400, year 400, something like that. And what they found was that back in the 1940s, the Nag Hammadi library was found, right? Which was this ancient text, which was in a mixture of Aramaic and Greek language. And it was the oldest known version of the New Testament, which predated the edited version. So people were able to look and see what it actually did say, as opposed to what's in the King James Version. And there was a very important difference, not a massive difference, but a very important difference. This idea of when you pray, you ask and you shall receive was actually retranslated. It was the true translation of it was ask without hidden motive and be surrounded by what you desire, be enveloped by what you desire, that your gladness be full. And what that's actually saying, that first section about ask without hidden motive is very much a Buddhist philosophy, because it's about the wisdom of non-attachment to the outcome. So even though it's the outcome you want, don't, if you start getting bogged down in the idea that, oh, you're desperate for this to happen, you kind of pushing it away from yourself again. You've got to just put it out there, but be surrounded by what you desire, be enveloped by what you desire, and your gladness will be full. And then you go back to this indigenous example, which Gregg uses from his friend David, who used all 5 senses as if it was actually already happening at that point, and feeling the gratitude for the fact that the rain was there. And it was a little bit funny, really, that at the end of it, they got flooded out because, as he said, we've always, for thousands of years, they've understood how to get these things, but actually regulating the amount was something they hadn't actually resolved yet. So, but, it's an interesting. What do you think, Jolie?
Absolutely. And that is how you manifest, those 5, 6 senses. If you bring in meditation, creative visualization, and the etheric energy, this is the blueprint or the step-by-step way to manifest. And imagine if you do this while breathing normally, because oftentimes our bodies feel like when we see ourselves where we want to be at our goal, it seems like it's an unsafe place. So when you visualize yourself there, it's very important to regulate your breathing so you can let your body know that what I'm seeing is safe for me and I'd like to get there. So it's interesting how all of these greats have said that the senses, the vibrations, the emotions, the things that we try and suppress the most are the things of manifestation.
Yes. Yes. And it also aligns with the 3rd universal law, which is, of course, the law of attraction, which it says everything. No, I'm going to get it right. What is like unto itself is drawn, right? So that actually is exactly what we're talking about. So it's right in line with that again. Thank you. Should we move to the meditation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move to the meditation. In today's meditation, we're going to do a little bit of that safe place for us to feel those emotions and learn how to maybe transmute that negativity of anger, the frustration and irritation we feel into the stuff of goal fuel, and strategy and joy that can get us where we need to go or where we benefit by going.
Right. I will do a share screen onto our copper wire spiral with 528 hertz backing it up. So here we go.
All right. Okay, as always, let's begin with our feet flat on the ground. And for those of you who may be laying down, please keep your feet flat for the beginning part of the meditation. As you bring your awareness to your chest, your heart chakra, and begin to breathe with the rhythm of your body. If your body is breathing fast and your heart is beating at an uncomfortable pace, command your heart to slow down. Give your heart some love. I feel that it's neglected, or it feels as if we don't pay attention to the burden that it carries, to the love that it gives. So let your heart know that it's there and that you love it and that you're grateful for it. And tell your heart to manifest or show that gratitude by pumping out your blood in a heart-shaped pattern. Instead of it being circular, let's have that blood that is running through our bodies, being filtered by that heart. All of those cells turn heart-shaped. As we take a deep breath in and exhale, allow the heart to do its thing. We bring our awareness to the center of our head. And here we find a comfortable place to sit as we open our brow and we put a rose outside our aura to the right and to the left, And this time, let's make our aura 1.5 feet around us, 18 inches front and back, side to side, top and bottom. And let's sit ourselves in the center of this perfect round aura. It is yours. You decide what it looks like. Make it perfectly round around you, and put those roses 5 feet outside of you, to the right and to the left. Because what you're going to do now is clean out the center of your head of all the people, the places, and the things that you have been, that are weighing you down, and that you are worrying about as you breathe with the rhythm of your body. And call your higher self above you, and allow for your higher self to clean out the center of your head as you now bring your awareness to between your sit bones and ground your energy into Mother Earth. This is your soul architecture. Your higher self above you, your aura 1.5 feet around you, grounded and rooted into Mother Earth as you snap that astral body in, feet and feet, knees and knees, hips and hips, hands and hands, elbows and elbows, shoulders and shoulders, head and head, as you're rooted and grounded into Mother Earth. You take a deep breath in, exhale, open those feet chakras like you would the lens of a camera, calling in that 15% earth energy, traveling up the side channels of your legs of a color and an earth element that resonates with you. As this energy climbs up those legs, and you open the crown of your head like you would the lens of a camera, and allow for that golden, divine life force energy to cascade down, fill up that cranium, rearranging, reprogramming those synapses and those neurons to behave in a way that supports your growth, your positive development, as it focuses down your spine, cascades and meets that earth energy. Some of it begins to go down the center of your legs, filling you up like water fills up a cup. The rest of it goes down that grounding cord as those beautiful golden scrubbing bubbles begin to mix with that 15% earth, 85% cosmic gold, and clean off that grounding cord. As you now stack 7 golden suns above your head, and allow for this essence to clean out the chakras. And while this is taking place and you are breathing with the rhythm of your body, I want you to bring your awareness to the center of your head. Visualize yourself reaching that goal. And if you say, well, I'm not sure, I'd like for you to just imagine collectively connecting with the abundance of the universe, allowing for that abundance to come in with that 15% earth energy and with that cosmic gold, divine life force, peppering that energy of Mother Earth and of divine with abundance as you see it, bringing it in so that it then moves out into your aura layer and out into the world. You're creating new pictures of your future. What does that abundance look like? Smell the abundance. Is it in the kitchen? What's it cooking? Feel the abundance. What does it feel like to sit in abundance? Take it in as you smell it. What does abundance taste like? What does your goals taste like? What does it feel like as this earth energy and this cosmic gold life force energy runs through your system while your higher self is above you, your astral body is snapped in, you're rooted and grounded into Mother Earth, and you're breathing at a normal rate. As you feel, you taste, you see, your mind's eye, and you hear abundant music. What kind of music is playing when your goals are reached? What does the food taste like, the water? What do hugs feel like when you're in a state of abundance? What does the chair feel like when you're sitting in abundance? As you breathe at a normal rate and with the rhythm of your body, allow for those chills, heat waves, and the feeling of abundance. Allow for your salivation glands, your, what are they called? Your saliva glands to taste the abundance. Allow your nose to smell, your ears to hear all of that abundance, that goals that you're reaching. As you breathe with the rhythm of your body. And not only you, but go ahead and see others in your life partaking of this abundance and hold that space for them, because your abundance has stabilized. Your chakras are cleaned. Bring those golden suns down. Stack another 7 above your head as you focus in on cleaning out those chakras and reprogramming them with your goals and with that feeling of abundance, expansion, financial prosperity, love, functional relationships, loving careers and environment, people, experiences. Stay there, right there, and see them there as well. Share that love, share that light, share that food, share that drink, share that music, share that beautiful scent, that incense of abundance. All of those you love, bring that into your environment, bring that into you. As you move out that energy that you just cleaned out of your aura layers, moving that down into Mother Earth, down the grounding cord, turning it into positive creative life force energy as you bring those 7 golden suns down and allow them to fill up your aura layer with that expansiveness and that abundance. As you take a deep breath in and exhale and allow for that energy of abundance to integrate into your energy, and that 15% earth and that 85% cosmic gold mixing in with your earth energy, your abundant energy, all the energy you've called back, that you've put in those roses outside your aura layer, that you're ready to give a push, blow up, golden sun above your head, calling all your energy back once again, bringing that down, popping that into that cascading gold light, 85%, allowing for it to mix in that abundance that's within you, moving all the way out into your aura, out into your environment, lighting it up with that abundance. As you take a deep breath in, you close your feet chakras for me, your head chakras, your crown chakras. You stop running energy. You take a deep breath in. You see that your grounding cord is still rooted into Mother Earth. Your higher self is still above you. Astral body snapped in as you close that brow chakra, because the center of your head is clean and clear and filled with light. As you take a deep breath in and exhale, and when you are ready, you can open your eyes.
And we're back. I'm feeling very abundant. Expansive. It was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, and I just wanted to do a bit of a catch up here because Janet is with us. And as so, you know, I just wanted to read out a couple of Janet comments because they're always very profound.
Mhm.
I understand this. All souls go to the Creator and there is no judgment. We need dark to see the light. Free will is wonderful. We have the choice of our life path. So make it a good one. That was one of the first ones. And then she followed up. I know, like this is when we were talking about the manifestation, the prayer thing of the indigenous David. I know this. He imagined his feet getting wet. He saw this in his head and put it out into the universe, and it's very powerful. And then one that has just arrived, hot off the press. Thank you, Jolie. That was wonderful. So, and thank you, Janet. I love having you here.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm. So, yeah, I think that was a great way to round this off, really. But again, I just come back to repeat that same point that, you know, the group consciousness is powerful. It creates outcomes of unspeakable beauty or ugliness. The choice is ours. We together can become the source of the consciousness that we and others wish to experience. So understand that we have great power, so it is time to exercise our power into the perfection of the world we want to see around us. And we do have that power. So now we know how. And right, we're going to keep working on this now because this is going to be a movement that we're going to keep moving and building outwards under our nos populi side of things. And we will let you know more as that starts to unfold. So you just have to decide for yourself whether this is right for you. And if it is, you know, we would love you to join us on the journey, but just know that you can unhitch your wagon at any time you choose, because your journey is unique to you and that is honored without exception. And I think that's a point we always like to make, because I know some people will look at this and not really be able to get their heads around of it. They may regard it as deluded nonsense. And 6 years ago, so would I. So I understand why people really struggle with this. But I do think that this is a time as well where people are starting to ask questions and realize that things shouldn't always be accepted at face value, and that you have to practice discernment in deciding reality, regardless of who is feeding you the information, whether it's Elevated Planet, whether it's the mainstream media, social media, governments. You've got to be discerning these days. I think that's the key message out there, and decide for you what your reality is going to be, but just be guarded. What do you think, Jolie?
Absolutely. And your heart and your mind are your best friends. And if it doesn't resonate, it's not right for you, move on. And without guilt and without looking back, it's time that you let go of the past. We all do together, and we wipe the slate clean and move into an energy, maybe of the unknown, because what is required of us now is downstream energy, meaning that we stop fighting against all of the things in our lives that maybe society is rubbing against. You know, it's time for you to bet on yourself and the spirit that guides you.
Oh, that's, yeah, exactly right. We're going with the flow, with the flow of the divine universal river. We're not fighting against it. This is a point that Chris Stiles made actually when we did the interview with him back in January. You know, this is really exactly as you described it there. Jolie was mirrored by Chris as well, saying, you know, this is something that's a time of change and we can go with the flow. We're not fighting against it anymore. We're going with it because it's taking us where we want to go. Anything upstream is not where we want to be. So
Not anymore.
not anymore. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Jolie.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, as always, it is. And I just to say thank you again to our community. I love the fact that we have you with us. You know, whether you're watching this on the live or whether you're watching us on the recording, you know, I welcome your comments at johndrew@elevatedplanet.life, and I can field those comments for Jolie as well. I'll make sure she gets everything she needs to. And if you know people who want to join our distribution list for the weekly newsletter that goes out tomorrow, which includes the recorded version of this, then again, johndrew@elevatedplanet.life, or you can go to our elevatedplanet.life website, where there is a contact page where you can drop your details on there or ask any questions that you feel drawn to. So, okay. All right. Is that it then, Jolie? You think we're done?
I think so.
Cool.
One in the can.
Yeah, it's in the can. But just remember, final comment from Frank Zappa. A mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open.
Exactly.
And that wouldn't be a very nice feeling as you plummet from the plane, would it? So anyway, let's do it. Let's go. And we'll see you in a week's time. And we will be back with a newsletter tomorrow. Take care. Love and light to all.